You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. The homegoing service for former Congressman John Conyers of Detroit was held today at Greater Grace Temple in Northwest Detroit. Dignitaries from all over shared their memories about Congressman Conyers, who died October 27th at the age of 90. Here's a roundup of those who celebrated his life and legacy.
We are here today to celebrate this sad, joyous occasion and to extend love to the family and give love to the family, because that is what Congressman Conyers would want. He would want us to cry and shed a couple of tears, maybe a lot of tears, but then he would want us to get up. He would want us to get up and keep moving forward and keep living the life that he fought so hard for us to have. Because that fight still needs to continue. When we read through his accomplishments, his fights for civil rights, his fight for equal rights, his fight to uplift us out of poverty and be a part of this U.S. Constitution. He fought every single day for someone else. He didn't fight for himself, but he fought every single day for you and I.
I'd like to thank the people of Detroit for electing him 27 times. I'd like to thank you for giving him the space and the support, not just to faithfully represent his district, but to represent people all across our country and even around the world on the things that we should all care about. He was out there banging the drum against apartheid in South Africa long before it was a widely popular cause. He always supported the people of Haiti, even when he could not support their government. He said the people deserve a better deal, and the United States should be a good neighbor. He worked for all of our cities and for jobs and employment and opportunity and peace and justice everywhere. Not every district gives their elected representative the elbow room to do all those things. So I thank you for giving John his head. He never forgot about you either. One of the things that I liked about him is he didn't give up on things he thought were important. I remember, I think John Conyers was the first person that ever quoted Frederick Douglass to me in saying, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." Never did and never will. He understood that. Just 4 days after Dr. King was killed in Memphis, he introduced the first bill to make his birthday Martin Luther King Day. It took 15 years to pass, but John never gave up. And he kept reaching out to Republicans as well as Democrats. And he passed it 15 years later, and President Reagan signed it into law. His friend's Lionel Hampton's greatest hit was called "Flying Home." Our friend John, He's finally flying home. He made some beautiful music in the key of life. Like all great jazz musicians, Coltrane, Miles, Charlie Parker, he was not perfect, and that made his achievements all the more important and all the more meaningful.
We did become very good friends, working together on voting rights issues and civil rights issues. We worked very hard to get a fellow by the name of Bill Clinton elected president. And then Barack Obama after that. And when I moved into Detroit in 2012, I moved in a block away from the Conyers family, and the Congressman would come over to the house from time to time for events. But no matter what I was doing in my life, when I was prosecutor working at the medical center or in the mayor's office, I'd call him, and he always had time for advice. And sometimes he called me with advice even when I didn't call him. And that was probably the time I needed it most. But when you were friends with John Conyers, you were part of history because he was walking history.
So we celebrate this man today, but not to the level that we should have been celebrating him. Because he talked about those higher mountains, climbing them. Talking about the by and by. Well, no. As the old people talked about the by and by, meaning someday we'll be away from racism and prejudice, and we'll be away from the place of people not having health care, or be away from the place where we wouldn't have equal education for everyone. Yes, the by and by in heaven. But you know, he believed, and I believe, in those of us who are real, true Americans of whatever color we are, know that the by and by has got to be right now. So we cannot forget that life of John Conyers Jr., because he reminded us every single day that he spoke on those things are very real. But what we can do so that we don't forget is commit ourselves on this coming celebration of Dr. King's Day. For those that go to work, don't go to work. Do something constructive for this nation. Make sure that those of you who have not registered, make sure that you register so that you can vote. For you, John. My city, lovely as a summer day. My city, distant as the Milky Way. My city, pretty little woman I adore. You're the only girl my heart beats for. I wish that you were mine.
I have but a moment in time, but the journey with this distinguished giant has been from the very moment that I stepped into the United States Congress. I was able and honored to be able to sit at a podium in the House Judiciary Committee. It is for that reason that I come with a mountain of passion and an understanding that first, Chairman Goodlatte, we will accept that challenge, But we will also accept the challenge that this giant be honored in Washington, D.C. John Conyers answered the call to serve so that others could have justice. Many have spoken the beauty of the music of Stevie Wonder, have spoken of the voiceless. I speak of those who tried to speak and were silenced. John Conyers took their cause. They felt that there was no one who cared about them, and John Conyers came and he gave voice to the silenced, and he gave them hope. That's a little different from just doing your legislation. He went into the lion's den and he gave people hope. He led the first discussions between community and police. He was that conscience, he was that fighter. He was a Renaissance man. He educated us about our own history. He wrapped himself around being ostracized and being talked about and rebuked because he said if it was for right, he was a giant and he was going to do it.
I have to tell you that I have to thank my brother, my dear friend, the Reverend Jesse Louis Jackson. Reverend Jackson and John Conyers, two of a kind, bold, progressive, not afraid, willing to do what most others would not do. John Conyers, again, was a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the longest serving African American in the history of Congress, and a lifelong champion of civil rights and equality. However, to me, John Conyers was more than a colleague. He was a mentor. And he shared his wisdom and expertise with me on issues of race and confronting police brutality and the unjust criminal justice system. He taught me so many lessons that I will never forget. John Conyers took me and so many other members of the Democratic Caucus under his wing and his leadership, and his voice is certainly going to be missed.
Folks, that was Congresswoman Maxine Waters, of course, sharing her thoughts and remembrances about Congressman John Conyers. So many folks spoke there as well, and of course, laid to rest. Age of 90, joining us right now on our panel here. We've got Eugene Craig, CEO, Eugene Craig Organization. Dr. Avis Jones-Weaver, political strategist. Dr. Julian Malveaux, economist, president emerita at Bennett College. Folks, it was important that, first of all those folks who spoke, but also, bottom line, that they showed the respect for this man. He had to resign due to sexual harassment allegations, but they said 53 years of work will not determine whether or not I show myself publicly to speak at his funeral. The reality is, had he not, there's no doubt in my mind, had he not resigned in 2018, he would have been lying in state in the Capitol.
Right now.
He would have been, there would have been a much larger homegoing for Congressman John Conyers.
You know, Roland, I was with Reverend Jackson last week, and he made the analogy of baseball. He said when you play a baseball game, you've got runs, hits, and errors. At the end of the day, you're basically judged by the runs and not by the errors. So the people who are talking about Congressman Conyers in terms of that last little bit of his life are ignoring the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, all the things he did. And for me, as a member of NARC, the National African American Reparations Commission, he introduced H.R. 40 in 1989. And every session, he kept doing it, just like he did with the Martin Luther King birthday. He did that for almost 15 years. Every session, he reintroduced it. He did the same thing with reparations. We worked with him, and he was just such a champion and such an encourager about this issue. And, you know, some people, reparations, we don't want to talk about it. But he's like, you have to talk about it. So I admired him, and I will miss him. And, you know, the sisters who are NARC, National African American Reparations Commission, we cut a a little video I've been looking for. I can't find it on my computer. Where we basically said we got his back. Don't even go there about sexual harassment. When we have been the victims of sexual harassment in terms of, white people, white men basically raping black women. So let's not even go there. So Joanne Watson, the city councilor, who I hope spoke, I didn't see it today, Nkechi Taifa, we stood and we cut it. But, it's just, we lost two giants in a very short period of time, but Congressman Conyers was the real deal, and that's all you can say.
Avis?
Absolutely. I think what his life shows us, and I hope that people take away from all that he worked for and actually ultimately accomplished over time, is that this is how policy is made in our country. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that you have a desire to push forward a, momentous piece of legislation that it goes through instantaneously. It takes someone who has the tenacity to go back again and again and again and do all of the work that's necessary, not only to build the public will, but to also navigate the inside game to make that stuff happen. And so, it's really important that when you see someone who has the dedication, but also the political skill to make that happen over and over again, with such consequential pieces of legislation that he was able to eventually push, it absolutely demands respect. And I'm so happy that they were able to show that through this service.
Look, from a more generational perspective, the reason we were able to have our Hakeem Jeffries, our Tim Scotts, and our Cedric Richmonds is because we had our John Conyers and our Elijah Cummings. We stand on the shoulders of giants, and Congressman Conyers is one of those giants. He's there for almost every consequential piece of legislation that's affected Black America, and I think we all owe him a debt of gratitude.
But it's more than Black America. He stood for jobs, peace, and justice. So although he focused on our community, he focused on the broader community in terms of employment. He talked about employment legislation. In terms of peace, he was one of the few votes against the Iraq War. In terms of justice, he was always there when you're talking about law enforcement, and the disrespect of Black people. So while, on one hand, we claim him as a champion, the truth is that the nation needs to claim him as a champion, because he was that progressive voice, he, Barbara Lee, a few others who just really, like Maxine said on the thing, he wasn't scared. He wasn't scared at all.
All right, folks, in the show. Again, Congressman John Conyers laid to rest today in Detroit. Died, of course, at the age of 90. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Yep. All right, folks, Luxe Jazz Experience taking place in Cabo, November 7th through the 11th next week. Yours truly will be there. We want you to be there as well. Go to lifeluxejazz.com, LIFELUXEJAZZ.com. 14 acts, Gerald Albright, Kirk Whalum, Average White Band, Sheila, Ronnie Laws. It's going to be jam-packed. Now, here's the deal. If you can't go, I understand. But you can also participate by getting the live streaming pass from GFNTV.com. GFNTV.com. $10.99. You'll get to see all of the concerts over the course of 3 days. It's fantastic. Oh, did I tell you that GFNTV.com, Black owned? Yeah, as well. And so also, Luxe Jazz Experience, Black owned. A sister created this to provide an opportunity for African Americans who live in a lot of these cold states, even though climate change has screwed that sucker up, to opportunity, of course, to hang out in Mexico for 4 days and have a great time. I'll be doing Roland Martin Unfiltered there next Thursday and Friday from Cabo, but you can experience the concerts by going to GFNTV.com and getting your live streaming pass. So please do so, and we look forward to checking it out. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.